Hi friends, welcome to this test discussion on polity and current affairs. I am Rangarajan, Associate Director of the Officers IAS Academy, and so I will be discussing this question paper in detail, but I would like to tell you upfront, there are many questions which ask for incorrect statements. When I say many, at least 7-8 of them. It is not the usual thing in the UPSC. UPSC may just have 1 or 2 questions which ask for incorrect statements, but this is a practice. So I don't want to repeat it again during the test discussion. So that is why I am telling you upfront. Please be careful and please be watchful about it when you take the test and also the UPSC Prelims examination. The explanation in the answer key is given in detail. I am not going to repeat the entire thing because that will take about 4 to 5 hours. But please read it in detail. I am going to highlight to you only the important provisions and the important conceptual points, discussion, tricks of elimination. That is what this test discussion will primarily focus on. And with respect to current affairs which are fact based, we will just quickly go through those answers, and the explanation that you have in the answer key will give you more details about that. So with that, let's move on to the question. So the first question, consider the following events: Act for the Good Government of India, Pitt's India Act, Lee Commission, setting up of Simon Commission. So now we know setting up of Simon Commission, all of us know Simon Commission was in 1927, so this should be one of the last of the events to have happened out of the events that are given here. So automatically, technically, you arrive at the answer. If you know that Simon Commission was 1927, and if you vaguely, you don't remember when was Lee Commission set up, when was Pitt's India Act enacted. Pitt's India Act was enacted in 1784. Act for the Good Government of India is nothing but the Government of India Act 1858, and Lee Commission was set up in 1923-24 for the purpose of report of the for the purpose of recruiting civil servants in India. So the moment you know that Simon Commission is likely, you may have a confusion between Lee Commission and Simon Commission, then also you are automatically eliminating these two choices and your choice is between this and this, but then you go to the next level, Pitt's India Act or Government of India Act 1858. You know Pitt's India Act was 1784, so automatically you arrive at the correct answer, which is C, right? So that is the answer for the first question. Consider the following events: Communal Award, Islington Commission, General Committee of Public Instruction, and establishment of Reserve Bank of India. Now again, don't get psyched when you look at the question paper and you suddenly find names like Islington Commission, General Committee of Public Instruction. Oh God, I have not, or I vaguely remember reading it, but I exactly don't know when it was set up. Look at the options where you know the year. And you know Reserve Bank of India is as recent as 1935. So in all likelihood, Reserve Bank of India is the last of the chronological order. And before that, Communal Award, we all know the famous Eravada Jail hunger strike of Gandhiji. He went on a hunger strike for 12 days because Dr. Ambedkar and Gandhiji had a difference of opinion. Dr. Ambedkar was supporting the Communal Award, which was giving a separate electorate to the depressed classes, but Gandhiji felt that it will alienate the Harijans from the Hindu fold. So he was not agreeable to that, and that led to the hunger in the Eravada jail in Pune for 11 or 12 days, and finally on the 12th day the Pune Pact was agreed between Dr. Ambedkar and Gandhiji. So we know that it is 1932. Anyone who studied modern Indian history will know that Communal Award and Pune Pact was 1932. So you know Pune Pact, Communal Award 1 is the third in chronological order. Establishment of Reserve Bank of India is 1935, is the fourth in chronological order. So you look at it, 1 followed by 4 should be the last two options. So where does it come? Here. So you don't have to bother whether Islington Commission was formed first or General Committee of Public Instruction was formed first. The correct answer is B. But just for your knowledge, so that as I told you, elimination will work only. Here also you have eliminated only because of your knowledge about Pune Pact, because of your knowledge about Reserve Bank of India being set up in 1935. Again, under the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, the Reserve Bank of India was set up in 1935. So because of that knowledge, but you apply that knowledge while eliminating the answers, right? And just for information, the General Committee of Public Instruction was set up in 1823 for the purpose of recommendation on matters of education, and the Islington Commission was set up in 1912 for recommending reforms in the for recruitment to public services in the British India. So the correct answer is B. Moving on to the next question. Consider the following statements about Government of India Act 1858. So guys, in this test we have asked a question from each of the important enactments which were enacted by the British when they were in power in India, starting from the Regulating Act of 1773 till the Government of India Act 1935. And all the salient features of each of these acts is given in your explanation as part of the answer key. So that is why I repeat, your test preparation is not complete without revising the answer key along with the explanation which is given. Because UPSC may not ask the same points which we have asked in the question, but based on the explanation that has been given to you, you may be able to answer that question. And from these acts, invariably one question, sometimes even two questions are asked in UPSC. So it's a very important area. That's why we have concentrated on this area in this test. So please let's please go through the explanation in detail as I told you as part of the answer key. But we will look at the questions here, apply the knowledge that we have, and also eliminate and arrive at the answers. Right. So Government of India Act 1858 was dominated, and before that, what is it that the question is asking for? Which of the statements given above is or not correct? So as I told you, please, even in UPSC, look at this statement first. Invariably, 95% of the questions or 97% of the questions will ask only for correct statements in UPSC. But as I told you in the beginning, we will have more proportion of questions which ask for incorrect statements, so that it acts as a practice for you, so that by oversight you don't miss out in the actual UPSC exam. So first look at the statement even in UPSC, whether it's asking for correct or incorrect statements, because based on that, subconsciously you will start eliminating the statements. So now it is asking for not correct statements. So the moment you look at a correct statement, you will automatically eliminate it, because the question is asking for incorrect statements. Government of India Act 1858 was dominated by the principle of absolute imperial control. Yes, it is after the Sepoy Mutiny, or the First War of Independence as it is called, that the British Crown took the complete control of the administration. So the first statement is a correct statement, which means for this question it is not a correct answer. So automatically you eliminate A and D. By this act, the powers of the Crown were to be exercised by Secretary of State for India, assisted by a council. So don't get confused here. There was a Governor General in India. He had a 15-member council, but the entire Governor General and the council members were called as Governor General in Council, who assisted the Secretary of State for India, who was placed in Britain. So the second statement is actually a correct statement. You may get misguided and feel that the second statement is also wrong, but the second statement is actually a correct statement, which means for the purpose of this answer, it's a wrong statement. And so the correct answer is C, 3 only. And the Council of India had few nominated members. No, the Indian Councils Act 1861 only started having Indians as non-official nominated members in the council. So the correct answer is C, 3 only. Moving on, consider the following statements. Again, before you start the answer, what is it asking for? It is asking for correct statements. The East India Company obtained rights over revenue and civil justice of Bengal in 1765. That's correct, because before 1765 they had only trading rights. Under the Diwani rights, which was granted to the English Crown in 1765, the civil and the revenue rights were also given. So the first statement is correct. The Sepoy Mutiny in 1857 forced the British Crown to assume direct responsibility of governing India. Yes, that is what resulted, the First War of Independence resulted in the Government of India Act 1858. So the second statement is also correct. The Act for Good Government of India, or Government of India Act 1858, pursued the policy of associating Indians in the administration. So we saw even in the previous question, there was no Indian representation. The entire Governor General in Council, all the 15 members were official members, all of them whites. So the third statement is wrong. So the correct answer is B, 1 and 2 only. So moving on, consider the following statements with regard to Regulating Act of 1773. So this is the first act which formalized the control of East India Company also, I mean, it was there from 1765 as we have seen in the previous question, but the first official enactment of the British Parliament with respect to India was the Regulating Act of 1773. It designated the governor. Before that, as usual, it is asking for correct statements. It designated the Governor of Bengal as the Governor General of India. This is a correct statement, the Governor General of Bengal, 1773. It allowed the servants of the company to engage in private trade. This is a wrong statement because the Regulating Act of 1773 prohibited the servants of British East India Company from private trade. So the moment you have chosen 1 to be correct and 2 to be wrong, you arrive at the answer, which is B. Sorry, you need to look at the third statement also. It created a board of control to manage the political affairs of the company. The board of control was constituted by the Pitts Act of 1784, not by the Regulating Act of 1773. So this is also a wrong statement. So the correct answer is A1 only. So that is the answer for this question. So moving on, Pitts India Act of 1784 distinguished between the commercial and political functions of the company by establishing a system of dual government, system of portfolio, system of dual control and system of devolution. So now this is purely knowledge, right? There is nothing called as elimination when it gives 4 options and you have to choose the correct answer. It is purely based on knowledge, isn't it? So system of dual government. What is system of dual government? Diarchy. When was diarchy introduced? In the provinces in 1919, in the center in 1935. So Pitts Act is 1784. So definitely this is not right. System of portfolio. Which are the subjects which will be which will be handled by which layer of government or which way it will be handled. So all that was a subsequent aspect under the British governance. So this is also not correct. System of devolution. System of devolution was devolving powers to the provinces. So it happened through delegation in Government of India Act 1919. It happened through a federal relationship between the center and the provinces through Government of India Act 1935. So this is also wrong. So system of dual control is the correct answer. You don't have to actually eliminate like this. I am just giving you an explanation for elimination. If you know the answer straight away, you can mark system of dual control. What is system of dual control? That's the difference between dual government and dual control. Dual government is transferred and reserved subjects, whereas dual control is where the commercial activities of the government or the British government here was controlled by the court of directors who belonged to the company, whereas the political aspects were controlled by a board of control, which was representatives who were nominated by the British Crown. So that is the dual control which was introduced in the Pitts Act of 1784. So the correct answer is C. Moving on, consider the following statements about Indian Councils Act of 1861. It empowered the Viceroy to issue ordinances without the concurrence of Legislative Council during an emergency. The Viceroy could veto the bills after they were passed or reserve them for consideration of the Crown. Which of the above statements are correct? So obviously ordinances, see it's very logical. In 1861 Indian Councils Act, there was non-official Indian representation in the Legislative Council. So it was purely an official white council in the 1858 Act. It became some non-official members who were Indians were also appointed or nominated by the Governor General to the council, to the Legislative Council. So it automatically follows that the Governor General cum Viceroy would have retained some discretionary powers, and both of these were discretionary powers. One is to, not discretionary powers, yes, one is to issue ordinances without concurrence of the Legislative Council during emergency, and the second is reservation of a bill which has been passed based on the recommendation of the Indian councils before he assents to it to reserve it for the approval of the Crown. So the correct answer is both 1 and 2. So guys, for all these acts, it is pure knowledge. Once you have the knowledge, if there are 3 statements, you can you can apply the elimination technique and eliminate it. But you cannot blindly apply elimination techniques in these questions, or for that matter any questions in polity. It has to be knowledge driven. So please be careful. Go through the explanation which is given in the answer key thoroughly for each of these acts. Right? Moving on. Which of the following is associated with the system of open competition for the recruitment of civil servants? So lateral entry is so much in news. This government had notified for 10 joint secretary level posts. I mean, I am not too sure what is the current status, whether they have started recruiting or not, but there was a lot of hue and cry, right? That it takes away the role of UPSC, it takes away, it is again going back to the spoils system rather than the merit based system which was introduced by the British. So who introduced it? It was Lord Macaulay Committee, which was in 1858, which resulted in the system of open competition. So the correct answer is D. Consider the following statements about Indian Councils Act of 1892. The non-official members in the central and provincial legislative council were increased and they held the majority. These councils could discuss the budget and address questions to the executive. Which of the above statements given are correct? So the councils could discuss the budget and address questions to the executive. 1892, we know 1858 was completely British control. The entire council was 15-member council, was all whites. Then in 1861, some non-official members were to be added, which were to be nominated by the Governor General. In 1892, what happened? The nominated members were to be nominated by local bodies. The 1892 Councils Act had a provision for nomination by local bodies, but it did not make it a majority. So the first statement is wrong, whereas the second statement is right. So the correct answer is B, 2 only, right? So while there were non-official members were increased and they were to be nominated by local bodies. When I say local bodies, the Bengal Chamber of Commerce for the Central Legislative Council and for the Provincial Legislative Council, the district boards, the universities and the local trade union, trade associations, they could nominate them, but it was never a majority. The majority, the non-official members became a majority in the provinces only in 1909, not in 1892. So that way the correct answer here is B, 2 only. And just for your thumb rule understanding, right, just to recap what happened when, how did the control move on, yeah. So very simple, 1858 complete British, 1861 Indians but nominated by Governor General. 1892 non-official members nominated by locals. 1909 they were elected. And then Government of India Act 1919 and Government of India Act 1935 completely changed, it created diarchy at the provinces and then diarchy at the center. So we will come to that when we discuss those areas, right. So consider the following statements with respect to Indian Councils Act. So we just completed this question. So the correct answer is B, 2 only. Consider the following statements with respect to Indian Councils Act of 1909. it introduced a system of communal representation for Muslims, Christians and Europeans. The Muslim members were to be elected by Muslim voters only. Which of the above statements is not correct? The second statement is correct. That is the separate Muslim electorate, the communal electorate as it is called, which started with only the Muslims in 1909 Act. So, and only Muslim voters will elect their representatives in such Muslim constituencies. So, the second statement is correct. So, which means this is not a correct statement for this. So, you automatically eliminate, which is not correct, you automatically eliminate this and this, sorry, this and this. But the first statement, it introduces a system of communal representation for Muslims, Christians and Europeans. So, that is a wrong statement because it introduced communal representation only for Muslims. So, the correct answer here is A, 1 only. Moving on, consider the following statements about Government of India Act 1919. It extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for Sikhs, Indian Christians, Europeans and Anglo-Indians. It was enacted in line with the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. So, the Morley-Minto reforms was Indian Councils Act of 1909. The Montagu-Chelmsford reforms was the Government of India Act 1919. So, the second statement is correct. The first statement is also correct. So, in 1909, the communal representation was only for Muslims, but in the Government of India Act 1919, it was extended to Sikhs, it was extended to Indian Christians, it was extended to Europeans and it was extended also to Anglo-Indians. So, Anglo-Indians means anyone who is of European descent and who has settled in India. So, it extended to all of these people, and the communal award in 1932 made it extendable even to the depressed classes, which was what Mahatma Gandhi was against, while Dr. Ambedkar supported it, and finally they arrived at a Pune Pact where there will be reservation of seats for the depressed classes, but there will not be a separate electorate like it is for the other communities. So, the correct answer here is C, both 1 and 2. So, moving on, to widen the basis and expand the functions of Government of India and to give further opportunities to the non-official and native elements in Indian society to take part in the work of the government. So, this is where you should immediately think of this table. What is the objective which is given here? To further the opportunities to non-official and native elements. 1858, clearly, as look at this table, 1858, complete British control. So, this is automatically eliminated. 1909, the non-official members became an elected majority in the provinces, right. So, clearly, the non-official members were to be elected by the local electorate. So, it's a far larger representation of the non-official members in the legislative process, in the legislative council. So, this is also eliminated. So, now your choice is between 1861 and 1892. So, 1861 introduced native and non-official participation, and 1892 furthered the opportunities to non-officials and native elements in the Indian society in the work of the government. So, the correct answer here is B, Indian Councils Act of 1892. So, moving on, diarchy introduced by the Government of India Act refers to division of central legislature into two houses. What is division of central legislature or division of legislature into two houses called? It is called as bicameralism. Introduction of double government, that is central and state government, central and state governments, it is actually called as a federal relationship. Having two sets of rulers, one in London and another in Delhi. Again, this has got nothing to do with diarchy. division of subjects delegated to the provinces into two categories. The transferred subjects which can be legislated by the council, legislative council, and the reserved subjects which can be legislated only by the governor of the province. So, the Government of India Act 1919 introduced diarchy in the provinces. It was the Government of India Act 1935 that introduced diarchy at the central level as well. So, the correct answer for this question is D, right? So, moving on, consider the following statements with respect to Government of India Act 1919. It introduced bicameralism whereby the Indian Legislative Council was replaced by an upper house and a lower house. Majority of the members of the lower house, called the Legislative Assembly alone, were elected directly. Which of the above statements given is correct? So, clearly bicameralism was introduced at the center. So, it introduced diarchy in the provinces, it introduced bicameralism in the center. And Government of India Act 1935 introduced federalism in the provinces and introduced diarchy at the center. So, if you prepare this table, then you will not forget it. 1858 to 1909, it was primarily, the incremental participation of non-official members and Indians in the governance. 1858, complete British control. 1861, non-official Indian members but to be nominated by the Governor General only. 1892, non-official members were to be nominated by the local bodies at the center and at the provinces level. So, that is 1892. 1909, non-official members were to be elected and it became a majority in the provinces. And 1919 introduced bicameralism at the center, diarchy at the provinces. 1935 introduced federalism at the provinces and diarchy at the center. So, this is the broad framework which you should be aware of. But of course, the additional nitty-gritties, important salient features of the acts should also be, you should be well versed with the salient features, right? And that is given as part of the explanation. Please read it because there is definitely a question which comes every year in the UPSC from these areas. So, it introduced bicameralism whereby the Indian Legislative Council was replaced by an upper house which was called the Council of States and the lower house which was called as the Central Legislative Assembly back then. It became the Lok Sabha after the adoption of the constitution, but before that it was called as the Central Legislative Assembly. So, the first statement is correct. Majority of members of the lower house, called the Legislative Assembly alone, were elected directly. This is a wrong statement because in the Legislative Assembly 104 out of 144 were elected, and in the Council of States or the upper house 34 out of 60 were elected. So, the second statement is wrong. The correct answer is A, 1 only, right? Moving on, consider the following statements about the Government of India Act 1919. The devolution of power to the provinces was a federal distribution of power. The control of Governor General over the provincial legislation was retained. I just explained to you a few moments back that 1919 was diarchy at the provinces, bicameralism at the center. 1935 resulted in federal relationship at the provinces and diarchy at the center. So, what does the first statement say? The devolution of power to the provinces was a federal distribution of power under the Government of India Act 1919. No, it was a federal distribution of power under the government. It was a federal relationship and distribution of power under the Government of India Act 1935. So, the first statement is wrong. The control of Governor General over provincial legislation was retained, obviously. So, this is common sense. It is, they wanted to give incremental powers to the Indians, but they wanted to ultimately retain control because it was not a democratic country, it was ultimately a colony which was ruled by the British. So, obviously, the Governor General will have discretionary powers over the provincial legislation whenever required. So, the second statement is correct. So, the correct answer is B, 2 only. Now, moving on. The distribution of powers between the center and the state in Indian Constitution is based on the scheme provided in the Indian Councils Act of 1909, Government of India Act of 1919, Government of India Act of 1935, Indian Independence Act 1947. Straightforward answer. We are primarily, no, the entire Indian Constitution, Schedule 7 is based on the distribution of powers. A lot of administrative provisions in the Indian Constitution is directly influenced by the Government of India Act 1935, because we were used to that governance, so we continued with those provisions even after independence in the form of our sovereign constitution. Consider the following statements. The preamble cannot be amended by the Parliament using its power under Article 368. The preamble to the Indian Constitution is based on the objectives resolution adopted by the Constituent Assembly. Which of the statements given above are correct? So, the second statement we all know is correct. It is based on the objectives resolution that the preamble was finally adopted by the Constituent Assembly just before the Constitution itself was adopted on 26 November 1949. So, the second statement is correct. So, automatically you eliminate A and D. Now, the first statement, whether it is correct or not, the preamble cannot be amended by the Parliament using its power under Article 368. Oh, we know that originally it was only sovereign democratic republic. We know that the words socialist and secular and integrity were added. Subsequently, all of us should be aware that it was during emergency by the 42nd Amendment Act, but we know that it was amended subsequently. So, the first statement is wrong. So, the correct statement is B, 2 only. So, moving on, consider the following features mentioned in the preamble. Justice includes social, economic and political. Economic justice involves reduction of inequalities in wealth. Social justice implies equal treatment of all citizens without discrimination on the basis of race, religion and caste. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. So, which of the above statements is correct? Preamble, we the people of India having solemnly resolved blah blah blah, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political. So, the first statement is correct. So, guys, there is a new constitutional amendment, the 103rd amendment, the 124th bill, the 103rd amendment, which was just recently assented to by the President, which has created 10% reservation for economically weaker sections amongst the general category people, apart from the backward classes which already enjoy reservation, which is the OBC, SC and ST, 10% for economically backward or economically weaker sections amongst the general category. So, in that debate in the Parliament, which was of course just for 2 days, I wish it was for a longer period of time when bills take years to legislate in this country. It was quite strange that such an important constitutional amendment was passed in just 2 days, but that's just a separate argument altogether. So, let us concentrate only on the civil service preliminary examination. So, in that debate, when the finance minister of the country was defending the amendment and was speaking on behalf of the government, he had extensively quoted from the preamble. Now, forget the political aspects of it, forget the political statements about it, but this was telecast live, it is a very important discussion, and UPSC may ask questions from the preamble just because it was widely discussed. So, whether this is economic justice or whether this is social justice, whether reservation is meant for social justice or is it also meant for poverty alleviation. So, these are conceptual debates which are happening and different political parties will take different stands on them. So, forget all of that, but these are also debates which revolve around the debates in the Constituent Assembly. And so, for that reason, this becomes very important for this preliminary examination. So, justice includes social, economic and political, we know that, fine. Economic justice involves reduction of inequalities in wealth, that is straightforward, it does not require too much of knowledge to understand that economic justice means inequalities in wealth should go away. So, this is also correct. So, automatically you eliminate option A, option C. So, now you need to know whether the third statement is correct or not. Social justice implies equal treatment of all citizens without discrimination on the basis of race, religion and caste. So what is social justice? Social justice is setting right the competing claims of various classes and also trying to set right the discrimination, the caste based discrimination which was prevalent in this country for centuries together. In order to set that right, we have social justice. And that is what is offered through various reservations and affirmative actions. So the third statement is wrong. Third statement is actually political justice. It is equality, where you treat everyone equally without discrimination. Social justice positively discriminates in favor of the underprivileged classes. So in fact, when I said this question paper, I did not have this word caste. I wanted to confuse you even more, because this gives it away, isn't it? Because we know social justice means reservation for backward classes, which is based on caste. So this has caste. So obviously the third statement is wrong. But even if it does not have the word caste, the third statement is wrong. Because social justice is not treating people without discrimination on the basis of race, religion, color, etc. That is political justice, that is equality. Social justice implies ensuring that we create a welfare society by giving some affirmative action to the underprivileged caste and the underprivileged classes of the society. So the correct answer here is B, 1 and 2 only. Moving on, consider the following statement. Sovereign means the state has power to legislate on any subject. Again guys, I am not going to the actual question line, but have it in mind, you should have already started doing this based on the test discussions we have had in the past. But if you have not started doing it, at least starting from the next test, make it a practice. Consider the following statements if it comes. Usually UPSC gives this statement in the first line itself. Which of the above statements is correct, or which of the below statements is wrong or incorrect. And here it will usually say choose the correct codes from the options given below. So you will not miss it. But just in case the question is framed in this manner, the first thing that you will have to look out for is whether the question is asking for correct statements or incorrect statements. Majority, why majority? 98% of the questions, as I told you, 1 or 2 questions may ask for incorrect statements in UPSC, sometimes even 3, but this is a practice for you so that you don't miss out on that one odd question and make a blunder because of your oversight, right? So it is asking for correct statements. Sovereign means the state has the power to legislate on any subject in conformity with constitutional limitations. Yes, that is what sovereign means. Our parliament is sovereign for enactment, of course subject to the basic structure of the constitution. India being a sovereign state can cede territory in favor of a foreign state subject to constitutional requirements. Yes, if it is exchange of territories or ceding of a territory which is declared as a territory of India, it will require a constitutional amendment, but it can be done. The 100th constitutional amendment was for exchange of territories with Bangladesh. So this is also a correct statement. So automatically you eliminate A and you eliminate C. Now sovereignty was added to the preamble by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. So the 42nd Amendment Act added the word secular, socialist in the adjectives that describe India, right? The Republic of India. So sovereignty was there right from the beginning. Sovereign Democratic Republic was there right from the beginning in 1950. So the third statement is wrong. So the correct answer is B, 1 and 2 only. Moving on, consider the following aspects relating to equality as enshrined in the preamble to Indian Constitution. Equality of status implies level playing field for all citizens while making special provisions for the underprivileged classes. Equality of opportunity implies equality in civil rights, freedom of speech, property rights, etc. Which of the statements given above are correct? So this is just mixed, and this was exactly the discussion that the finance minister was doing when he was representing, or when he was presenting the case in favor of the government which had moved the constitutional amendment providing for 10% reservation for economically weaker sections amongst the general category people. So equality to secure to its citizens equality of status and of opportunity. What is equality of status? Equality in civil rights, freedom of speech, property rights, etc. What is equality in opportunity? level playing fields for all citizens while making special provisions for the underprivileged classes. So this is just transposed. So which of the above statements are correct? Neither 1 nor 2 is correct. So the correct answer is 20D. Consider the following statements. Amendment of the Constitution under Article 368 can be initiated by introduction of a bill for the purpose in the Lok Sabha only. Which of the above statements are correct? Only money bill can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. Financial bill of category A, as we use it colloquially, right? It is a bill which provides for any of the matters listed in Article 110(1) A to F along with other matters. So that is what we call as financial bill category A. Only these two bills can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. All other bills, including the constitutional amendment bill, can be introduced either in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. So the first statement is wrong. It is asking for which of the above statements are correct. So you get the answer, which is C. So then you know, you save time in such questions, because you really don't have to read the next two statements, though you quickly read it and ensure that they are correct, but it has to be correct because that is the only option that you can pick. So these are the questions that you should save time on. This should be over in 10 seconds and you should jump to the next question, because some questions may take, you know, the previous question, whether social justice, whether it is correct or not, equality of status and opportunity, am I getting it right? You may spend more than 45 seconds in that question, 45 seconds or even up to a minute, but you'll have to answer 100 questions in 120 minutes. So these are the questions, these are time saver questions, as I call them. So one statement you have eliminated, you got the right answer, then move to the next question, right? So just for the purpose of reconfirming, such a bill should be passed by a special majority in both the houses, that's a correct statement. And such a bill is passed in each house by a majority of the total membership of the house and a majority of not less than 2/3, that's a correct statement. An amendment seeking to change the provisions of any list in the 7th schedule also requires ratification by 2/3, that's a wrong statement, because it has to be ratified by at least half of the states. So you get the answer based on the first statement itself, but that was just a reconfirmation. Consider the following: secular character of the Constitution, independence of judiciary, principle of reasonableness. Which of the provisions given above are basic features of the Constitution? All three of them. It's a straightforward question. S.R. Bommai judgment, independence of judiciary, even reiterated in the NJC judgment, principle of reasonableness, which was set out in the Menaka Gandhi judgment as well, so and various other judgments. So all these three are basic features or basic structures of the Constitution. So the correct answer is 22. For 22 is D, 1, 2 and 3. Which of the following is not a function of the Constitution? There are 4 functions of the Constitution. The first chapter, Indian Constitution at Work, your NCERT book, lists down these 4 functions. So if you have read it, you will know the answer. It provides a set of basic rules that allow for minimal coordination amongst members. Yes. Decide who has the power to make decisions in a society. Yes. Set the limits on citizens to function in a systematic manner. Hold on there. Enable the government to fulfill the aspirations of a society and create a just society. Yes. So obviously the third statement is wrong, because it sets limits on government. It sets limits on what the government can do to its citizens. It does not set limit on, of course there are reasonable restrictions which are placed on even the liberties that the citizens enjoy. But primarily, because it gives authority or power to make decisions in a set of people, because it gives the executive authority to a council of ministers headed by Prime Minister or council of ministers headed by the Chief Minister, because it gives legislative powers to the Parliament or the state legislatures, it is the state, it is the government which needs to be controlled, and that is what the Constitution does by providing fundamental rights. Through the basic features, the judicial review is a basic structure. All these are limits on the government. So it sets the limits on the government. So which is not a function of the Constitution? Out of this, the most appropriate is this. So it does set limits on the citizens also, right? Because there are reasonable restrictions. But that is not the primary function of the Constitution. The other 3 are definitely the most important functions of a Constitution. So the most appropriate answer for this question, which is not a function of the Constitution, is set limits on the citizens, right? So moving on, consider the following statement: Constitution expresses the fundamental identity of a person, both political and moral. It gives a collective identity. Constitution sets authoritative constraints upon an individual's behavior even in a free democratic society. Now, if you look at it, we will have some 2-3 pairs of questions like this, where in one question you will choose that as the answer because it is the most appropriate, but in the immediately next question you will not choose it as an answer because it is not appropriate. In the previous question, sets limits on citizens' functions was picked as the correct answer for which is not a primary function of the Constitution, because the primary function of the Constitution is to set limits on the government, and the other 3 statements which are given were definitely functions of the Constitution. So you picked setting limits on the citizens as not a function of the Constitution. And here, Constitution expresses the fundamental identity of a person. Yes, it does. It gives a collective identity, it creates the country called India and creates collective identity. So 1 and 2 is definitely right. Now the third statement, Constitution sets authoritative constraints upon an individual's behavior. In the previous thing we said no, it does not create any, set any limit on citizens' functions, but that was in the context of that question. Read the complete statement here. The Constitution sets authoritative constraints upon individuals' behavior even in a free democratic society. Remember Article 19, there are 6 liberties which are given there, but each of those liberties is subject to reasonable restrictions in the interest of the society, in the interest of public order, in the interest of morality, in the interest of sovereignty of the country, in the interest of friendly relations with foreign states, in the interest of contempt of court. So there are restrictions in the interest of scheduled tribes of the country. So while you have individual rights which are guaranteed, but there can be constraints which can be placed in the interest of the society, even though we are a free democratic society. So even this is a correct statement. So the correct answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. Guys, and we are not creating all these statements. If you have read the NCERT book, Indian Constitution at Work, you will read all these statements. So we have picked up the most critical of those statements from inside the paragraph, but if you have read it thoroughly, you will know the answers for these questions, right? Which of the following makes a constitution effective? Mode of promulgation, substantive provision, balanced institutional design, ability to command voluntary allegiance. So you know that the first one is correct, because any constitution which has been promulgated based on a national movement, based on public participation, we had a constituent assembly which was indirectly elected by the state provincial legislatures, but which was based on the national movement, national freedom movement. So if you promulgate a constitution by a king or by a dictator, it is not going to have effect. So mode of promulgation, and you don't have to think so much, all the 4 choices have it, so you don't even have to look at, you don't even have to break your head whether mode of promulgation makes it effective or not. It of course makes it effective conceptually. From the choices that is given, it definitely makes it effective. So move on to the next statement. Substantive provision. The constitution should have all the important provisions, isn't it? So without, what is a legislature, what is an executive, what is a judiciary, what are the provisions, how do they get their powers, it is not going to be effective. So the second statement obviously looks right. So then you eliminate this and this, your choice is between B and D. So both of them have 1, 2 and 3. So balanced institutional design, you don't have to bother, yes, it definitely has to have. Ability to command voluntary allegiance. Any constitution which is enforced through force will never survive, isn't it? Because it will not be effective. It can still be there, but it will not be effective. Only voluntary allegiance by the citizens will make a constitution effective, which is the case in a country like India. Of course, there are exceptions, there are forceful things which the state tries to do, right, time and again, but there are courts to to prohibit it. By and large, it is the voluntary allegiance of the citizens of a country which makes a constitution effective. So the fourth point is also correct. So the correct answer again for this is D, which is 1, 2, 3 and 4. So moving on. So consider the following statements. Guys, I will just rush up a bit from here. I am not going to miss out on any important points, but because we are already 1 hour into the discussion and we have just completed 25 questions, So of course for the current affairs area and the map related questions, I will just be briefly discussing them because the explanation has all the points. But the idea is, if I shoot it for 3.5 hours, it becomes too long, right, and it will not capture your attention span. So we will quickly look at the important provisional aspects alone which you need to know, and quickly look at the elimination techniques and move on from here. The explanation which is given to you along with the answer key, will have it in detail, and if you have any doubts, you are free to contact me any point of time. Consider the following statements. Parliamentary sovereignty, again the next two pair of questions is similar to the one that I was telling earlier. Two questions, you treat two statements, or you treat the same statement differently in two different questions. Let's go on and look at how it is done. Parliamentary sovereignty is the basis of amendment procedure. Our constitution is a living document. Constitution of India establishes a unitary system of government. We all know that India is a federation. So this is wrong. Which of the above statements is correct? So this automatically goes out of the window. This goes out of the window. Our constitution is a living document. Yes, that is why it is subject to interpretation. The Supreme Court again and again interprets the constitution. The right to privacy was declared as not a constitution, as not a fundamental right in 1962, but the right to privacy was declared as a fundamental right in 2017. There are so many such examples, right? There are so many aspects of the constitution which are subject to reinterpretation with the changing times, because our constitution is a living document. So automatically you arrived at the answer. If this is right, this is the right answer. And conceptually, in the context of this question, parliamentary sovereignty, so don't get confused. Oh, in India constitution is sovereign, how can parliament be sovereign? It doesn't say parliament is sovereign in just simple two words. It says parliamentary sovereignty is the basis of the amendment procedure. Who can amend the constitution? Only the parliament. And there is a procedure which is given on how the parliament can amend the constitution, and that power is given to the parliament in the constitution itself. So that is why the power being vested only in the parliament, and the procedure also mentioned in the constitution itself, that is the parliamentary sovereignty which is the basis for the amendment procedure. So this statement is correct in the context of this question. So the correct answer is B, 1 and 2 only. Sorry. Now consider the following: parliamentary sovereignty, written constitution, integrated judiciary, federal form of government. Which of the above are features of the Indian constitution? Now anybody who has sincerely studied the Indian constitution will have no doubt all these three are part of the constitution, or part of the features of the Indian constitution. But now here, choose the most appropriate answer. Parliamentary sovereignty is given as just a concept here. Is parliament sovereign in our country? No. It is a constitution which is sovereign. So if you have to choose between 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 2, 3 and 4, the most appropriate answer, I repeat, the most appropriate answer in this is 2, 3 and 4. So the correct answer for 27th question is 2, 3 and 4. In the previous question, we have selected parliamentary sovereignty as a correct statement, but in the context of the amendment procedure. So just because you picked it as a correct statement in the previous question, you should not pick it as a correct statement in this question. Then you are not getting the trick of the game, right? In this question, it is wrong, because this is asking about the features of the constitution, and constitutional sovereignty, constitutional supremacy is the feature of the constitution, not parliamentary sovereignty or parliamentary supremacy. So the correct answer, or the most appropriate answer, is 2, 3 and 4. Consider the following statements. The Indian constitution is committed to individual freedom. In the Indian constitution, liberalism is always linked to social justice. I really love this question, and because there is a lot of thought which has gone into this question. First statement everyone knows is correct. In the Indian constitution, it is committed to individual freedom. Yes, that is why fundamental rights are there in the constitution. In the Indian constitution, liberalism is always linked to social justice. Now, the catch in this question is people may get confused between liberalism and liberty. If this statement had been in the Indian Constitution, liberty is always linked to social justice. So, what is liberty? Liberty is Article 19 to Article 30. Yes? Equality is Article 14 to Article 18. Article 19 to Article 30 is all liberty. It is liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship, culture, protection, everything. But reasonable restrictions are placed on your liberty, be it Article 19, be it Article 25, 26, be it Article 29, be it Article 30. There are reasonable restrictions which are placed, but social justice is what? Social justice is affirmative action. Social justice is reservation, which is given in Article 15, Article 16, abolition of untouchability, Article 17, abolition of titles, Article 18, equality before law and equal protection of the laws, that is Article 14, but there is social justice in 15, 16, 17. So, if this had been liberty is always linked to social justice, it would have been a wrong statement. But what is the word here? Liberalism. What is liberalism? It is an ideology which is based on equality plus liberty. So, because equality is also part of liberalism, and in the Indian Constitution, the concept of equality is not absolute like in many of the Western countries, it is linked to social justice. There is no discrimination, but there can be special provisions for women, children, backward classes, and now 10% economically weaker sections amongst the general category. No discrimination in public employment, but there will be special provisions for backward classes and for now with the 103rd Amendment, even for of course the constitutional validity of that has to be upheld by the Supreme Court, but backward classes definitely it is already there, right? So, both the statements are correct. I mean, I will really give credit to the candidates who have got both the statements correct for this question, because it is easy to get carried away, oh liberalism, oh liberty. So, liberty has got nothing to do with social justice, it is only restrictions. Social justice is linked to equality, so the second statement is wrong. I mean, even if you have done that, don't lose heart. You should be glad that you have been able to analyze so much, right? But this is liberalism, which is equality plus liberty. And guys, I did not create this statement. It is again picked straight from your NCERT book, right? So, the correct statement is C, both 1 and 2. Moving on, consider the following statements. Indian Constitution as an intelligent system of checks and balances, of course it does. There is a horizontal fragmentation of power. What is horizontal fragmentation of power? 3 branches: legislature, judiciary, executive. There is fragmentation of power. What is the power of the legislature? What is the power of the executive? What is the power of the judiciary? The Constitution establishes a federal form of government. Yes, it does. There is one government at the center, one government at each of the states. Which of the above statements are true with regards to the concept of separation of power? So, while all the 3 statements are correct, the question is which of the above statements are true with respect to separation of powers. And so, the third is not related to separation of powers. System of checks and balances, judicial review, any executive action, any legislative action is subject to judicial review. You know, the parliament is subject to judicial review, the acts enacted by the legislature, there is executive action is subject to control by the legislature, that is also separation of power, not so much in a parliamentary democracy unlike in the presidential form, but still executive action is subject to legislative control. So, that is a check and balance that is there. So, first statement is correct. Horizontal fragmentation of power between the 3 branches, namely executive, legislature and judiciary, is separation of power, but the third is not separation of power, it is federal relationship. So, the correct answer is B, 1 and 2 only. Right. Moving on, consider the following statements. The Constituent Assembly consisted of significant leaders nominated by the members of provincial assemblies. No, the Constituent Assembly members were majority of the only the provinces, only the princely states had sent their nominated members to the Constituent Assembly. For all the provinces, close to 300 members were indirectly elected by the provincial state legislatures. So the first statement is wrong. So automatically you eliminate 1 and both 1 and 2. The demand for the Constituent Assembly was first time authoritatively accepted by the British government in August offer of 1940. That is a correct statement. Though it was the cabinet mission plan which created the Constituent Assembly by conducting elections and all that. First time in the August offer itself, it was acknowledged. So the second statement is correct. So the correct answer is B, 2 only. Consider the following. Ratification of India's membership to the Commonwealth, adoption of the national flag and national anthem, election of the President of Republic of India. Now guys, this is a slightly tricky question because many people may not be aware, but again this is picked from your sources only. All the three were done by the Constituent Assembly. People will know election of President of Republic of India is obviously through the Constitution, which was done by the Constituent Assembly. But national flag and national anthem, so the moment you know 3 is correct, your choice comes down to C or D. So you need to only decide whether first is correct or not. India's membership in the Commonwealth, ratification. Of course, the government of the day would have taken the decision, but the Constituent Assembly ratified it. So the correct answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. Moving on, consider the following statements. Directive principles specify the goals and objectives for the society. It also contains certain rights that individuals should enjoy apart from fundamental rights. It directs the government on certain policies to be adopted. Which of the statements given above are correct? I mean, in the class also we have discussed, these are the 3 important aspects that the directive principle seeks to achieve. So all the 3 statements are correct. So over and above the fundamental rights, right to work, equal pay for equal work, maternity benefit, various other rights are provided through various enactments which are derived from directive principles. And of course, it gives the goals and objectives of the society and the policies that the government should follow. So the correct answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. Which of the following laws were enacted to implement the directive principles of state policy? Right to minimum wages under employment guarantee program, right to education, formation of Panchayati Raj institutions. Now guys, it's a tricky question now because now Panchayati Raj institution is 73rd and 74th amendment is already there, so it is not anymore based on directive principles. Right to education is to give effect to right to education, which is a fundamental right under Article 21A. So strictly speaking, as of now, it's no longer related to the directive principles. Right to minimum wages under employment guarantee program. Employment guarantee program is giving you right to work. It does not give you right to minimum wages. So the first is definitely wrong, but there is no option none of the above here. If the choice was between 2 and 3 and none of the above, then you could have chosen none of the above, because technically these two also now at present are not flowing from the directive principles. One is flowing from the fundamental rights, the other is flowing from part 9 of the Indian Constitution. But remember, right to education under Article 45, before it became a fundamental right, Article 45 of the Indian Constitution read, the state shall endeavour to provide education to children, free and compulsory education to children between the age of 6 and 14 years. That was what was made into a fundamental right, and the right to education flowed from the fundamental right now, but it is also linked to the directives as it stood earlier. Panchayat Raj institutions, Article 40 of the Indian Constitution says, the state shall endeavour to give powers to the Panchayat Raj institutions so that they can act as local self-government institutions. Now, there were various Panchayat Raj enactments which are enacted by various states based on the Balwant Mehta committee, based on various other committees, starting from 1957 till 1992. And after 1992 only, it became a constitutional amendment in itself and Part 9 was added, Part 9 and Part 9A for Panchayats and municipalities. But Panchayati Raj institution enactments flew or rather they flowed from the directive under Article 40. So the correct answer for this question, or the most appropriate answer for this question, is C, 2 and 3 only, right? So moving on, which of the following directive principles was not added by the 42nd Amendment? 42nd Amendment, all A articles, right, were all added by the 42nd Amendment. Equal justice and free legal aid, 39A, which was used by the Supreme Court for justification of public interest litigation. Participation of workers in management of industries, 43A. Protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forest and wildlife, 48A. Promotion of cooperative society, sorry, I don't remember the article number exactly, 43 if I am not wrong. So, but anyways, I know the rest are all 3 added in the 42nd Amendment, so I know the correct answer is C. So the correct answer for 34th question is C. Consider the following statements. Directives to the state are found only in part 4 of the Constitution. Directive principles of state policy is primarily found in part 4, but we have seen there is a directive that the state should try and promote Hindi as the official language, Article 350 or 351, no 350, one of the two. Then you have, for linguistic minorities, the president can give directives to the state, isn't it, for providing education in mother tongue for linguistic minorities in a state. So these are all directives. The Article 335 states that the state shall ensure that the reservation for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes does not affect the efficiency in administration. So these are all directives. These directives are not found in part 4, but they are found elsewhere. Which of the above statement is correct? One is wrong. Time saver question. Correct answer is C. Clear? So please look out for such questions, because these should be done in 10-15 seconds and you should move on. And just to be sure, fundamental rights have supremacy over directive principles and cannot be amended in any case. No. To give effect to Article 39B and 39C, the I know basic structure only cannot be amended. The fundamental rights have been amended, and to give effect to 39B and 39C, even if it takes away your fundamental rights, it's not a problem. So the second statement is also wrong. Directive principles resemble the instrument of instructions enumerated in the Government of India Act 1935. Yes, it does. So the correct answer is C, 3 only. Consider the following statements with respect to directive principles of state policy. The directives, though non-justiciable, have been instrumental in enacting social reform legislations. Of course, Equal Pay for Equal Work, Payment of Wages Act, Minimum Wages Act, various Panchayati Raj institutions, social reform legislations, various acts, right, have been enacted to give effect to the directive principles. They offer protection to both children and youth from exploitation and against moral and material abandonment. Article 39F protects the children and youth from exploitation against moral and material abandonment. They provide for equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Yes, they do. But as a constitutional right, no, the directive principles are non-justiciable in nature, so it is not a constitutional right. Equal pay for equal work is now a legal right under the Payment of Wages Act, but it is not a constitutional right. So the correct answer for this is B, 1 and 2 only, right? Moving on, consider the following statements. Fundamental rights can be amended to give effect to certain directive principles. Directive principles are positive in nature. Directive principles can be said to be the fundamental duties of the state. Yes, directive principles are positive in nature, no doubt about it. Fundamental rights are primarily negative in character because they put restrictions. There are of course positive fundamental rights. We have discussed it in detail in the last test discussion. I don't want to get into it again because you can watch the previous video for that. But fundamental rights are primarily negative in character, whereas directive principles are all positive in character because these are guidelines for running the country, which the constitution makers thought, should be given to the future generations, right? So they are positive in character. They are said to be the fundamental duties of the state because it says it shall be the duty, it shall be fundamental to the governance of the country, and the state shall take these principles into account while framing its laws, is what is specified in Article 37. So the third statement is also correct. Fundamental rights can be amended to give effect to certain directive principles, meaning right to property was deleted, and right to property could be deleted in 1978 because it was to give effect to the Article 39B or 39C for equitable distribution of wealth. So it can be amended to give effect to certain directive principles, primarily 39B and 39C, and now of course basic structure cannot be touched, otherwise any part of the constitution can be amended. So the correct answer for this is 1, 2 and 3, right? Moving on. Consider the following statements. The state shall take steps to separate the judiciary from the legislature. The state shall encourage the settlement of international disputes by arbitration. Article 51, this is a correct statement. Article 50, the state shall take steps to separate the judiciary from the executive, not legislature. So this is a wrong statement. So the correct statement, which are the provisions laid down in the constitution, is B2 only. Consider the following: National Legal Service Authority (NALSA), Central Adoption Resource Authority (CARA), National Green Tribunal (NGT), Khadi Village Industries Commission (KVIC). Which of the above gives effect to directive principles of state policy? NALSA is for assisting free legal aid, Article 39A. CARA is to regulate the adoption of children, 39F, because children should not be left because of moral or material abandonment. So adoption is one way they can be protected from this. National Green Tribunal, protect the environment, Article 48A. Khadi and Village Industries Commission, guys, again I am forgetting the exact article number, 43, yeah, 43 if I am not wrong. Promote cooperative societies, promote cottage industries, all that is given in one of the articles, 41, between 41 and 43. So this is also part of DPSP, right? So the correct answer is 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? So 39 is D. Consider the following statements. The Constitution specifies that the fundamental duties are non-enforceable. Fundamental rights and fundamental duties are conditionally correlated. Fundamental duties are only individualistic in nature. Which of the above statements are correct? Constitution, does it specify that fundamental duties are non-enforceable? No. Constitution specifically mentions in Article 37 the directive principles of state policy are non-justiciable in nature. It does not talk about, it just says fundamental duties, every citizen should try and follow this fundamental duties. So the first statement is not correct. Fundamental rights and fundamental duties are correlated. Yes, they are correlated. But are they conditionally correlated? What does conditional correlation means? Your enjoyment of fundamental rights is dependent on fulfillment of fundamental duties. Is it the case in India? No. Fundamental rights are legally enforceable. Fundamental duties are just ideals which a citizen should follow. The duties were inserted in 1976 so that there can be some correlation with the rights people enjoy. So rights are correlated with duties, but they are not conditionally correlated. So the second statement is also wrong. There is no option called 3 only. So the correct answer is D, none of the above. But again, fundamental duties are only individualistic in nature. It says every citizen should follow this, but protection of, maintaining communal harmony, ensuring the dignity of women, ensuring that there, you should abjure violence. These are not just meant for only individuals, it is also meant for groups. So they are not only individualistic in nature, but more importantly, you don't have a choice, 3 only. If you had 3 only and none of the above, there may be some confusion. But considering that there is no 3 only as an option, the most appropriate answer for this question is none of the above, right? So the correct answer is D, none of the above. Consider the following statements. All fundamental duties are applicable only to citizens, whereas some fundamental rights are extended to all persons. Yes, we know that fundamental duties is applicable only to citizens, Whereas fundamental rights, we know 5 articles which are applicable to citizens, the rest of the articles are applicable to all persons. This would have been explained again in detail in the previous video, so please, those of you who haven't watched it, go and watch it. Fundamental duties cannot be enforced through writs, obviously. It is fundamental rights which can be enforced through writs under Article 32. Fundamental duties are not enforceable, the state cannot enforce it on the citizen. So which of the above statements are correct? The correct answer is C, both 1 and 2. Straightforward question. Consider the following statements. All the fundamental duties at present were added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment. The rationale behind fundamental duties is to create a harmonized society with a scientific outlook. The fundamental duties are in consonance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So the second statement is right. Well, whether it has created a scientific outlook in this country is a question of debate, right? Not just in the citizens but even in the state, going by recent examples. But the purpose of fundamental duties was to create a society with a scientific outlook. It is based on Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is also correct. Fundamental duties were added by the 42nd Amendment Act. Correct. So is the correct answer D? No. All the fundamental duties at present, when you are answering the question paper on January 21st, 2018, whether all of them were added by the 42nd Amendment Act in 1976? No. Article 51A, A to K, 51A, A to J, the 10 fundamental duties were added in the 1976 amendment. But 51AK, which created a fundamental duty on the parent or guardian to send their children between the age of 6 and 14 years to school, was added in the 86th Amendment Act in 2002. So the first statement is not correct. So the correct answer is C, 2 and 3 only. So people by oversight might have missed it. Don't do that in the actual UPSC examination. Consider the following statements. Parliament of India has the power to alter the area, boundaries and name of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Of course it does. Article 3 extends to the whole of India. The state legislature of Jammu and Kashmir has the power to resist any proposed change in the area, boundaries and name of the state. Now this is unique to Jammu and Kashmir because people of Andhra protested against Telangana being bifurcated. That was because most of them had properties in Hyderabad, but that was just on a lighter vein. But there was protest in Andhra Pradesh, but the center went ahead and did it. But the same cannot happen in Jammu and Kashmir because under the Jammu and Kashmir constitution, it is subject to the acceptance of the Legislative Assembly of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So both the statements are correct. So the correct answer is both 1 and 2. Which one of the following action is required for the settlement of boundary dispute between India and another country if the settlement does not involve ceding of Indian territories? We saw in one of the first few questions that if there is ceding of territory in favor of a foreign country or exchange of territory between two countries, between India and neighboring country, then it requires a constitutional amendment. But this is where it does not involve ceding of Indian territory. So simple, an executive order passed by the President of India based on the advice of Council of Ministers is sufficient. There is no act of parliament or there is no constitutional amendment that is required. So the correct answer for this is C, right? Which one of the following authority appoints the chief electoral officer of a state in India? Governor of that state, President of India, Election Commission of India, the concerned state election commission. So the chief electoral officer is appointed by the Election Commission of India based on the list of names recommended by the state government. So the state government usually sends 3 names and the appointment is done by the Election Commission of India. So it is not the governor of that state who appoints the chief electoral officer, but the chief electoral officer is appointed by the Election Commission of India. So that is the answer for this question. With reference to the election expenditure in India, consider the following statements. If elections are being held only for the Lok Sabha, the expenditure is borne entirely by the union government, logical. The state government bears the expenditure with respect to law and order maintenance while conducting elections to the Lok Sabha, that's also logical, right? I mean, I'm not just saying logical, this is based on the actual procedure which happens. And state legislature elections, the cost of conducting the elections is borne by the state legislature. If it is only to the Lok Sabha, it will be borne by the central government. So both the statements are correct here. So the, okay, which of the statements is not correct? So I can afford to miss it because I am just discussing the answers. You cannot afford to miss it in the actual examination. So please be careful. Check whether it is asking for correct or incorrect statements. This actually asked for incorrect statements. Both the statements are correct. So the correct answer is neither 1 nor 2. Yeah. Moving on. With reference to the National Human Rights Commission of India, consider the following statements. NHRC is a statutory body established under the Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993. The establishment of NHRC is in conformity with the Paris Principles. Both the statements are straightforward, correct. So the correct answer is C for this question. Which of the following authorities shall be removed from the office on the same grounds and in the same manner as a judge of the Supreme Court? Guys, there was a proposed amendment to the Right to Information Act. It was suggested that the procedure for appointment of the Information Commissioner was proposed to be changed. Their terms of office, not their removal procedure, but their terms of office, which is equivalent to the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners, was proposed to be changed. And finally, because of public backlash, it was finally dropped. So because of that, anything related to constitutional authorities, CIC, all these becomes extremely important for this prelims. So be careful about it. Yeah. Chief Information Commissioner, he can be removed like an UPSC member. Chairman of Union Public Service Commission, there is a separate procedure for that. What is the procedure for removing Union Public Service Commission members? By the President after inquiry by Supreme Court of India. And the Right to Information Act says the Chief Information Commissioner and the other information commissioners at the center or at the state can only be removed like this. Of course, for the state, it is by the governor after an inquiry by the Supreme Court, but they are not removed like Supreme Court judges. Chief Election Commissioner, yes, like a Supreme Court judge. CAG, yes, like a Supreme Court judge. But NHRC Commission Chairperson, this is not removed like this. I think it is just the President who removes them. So, or just re-look at that act as to what is the process for removal, but definitely not like a Supreme Court judge. So the correct answer is C, 3 and 4 only. With reference to the office of CAG of India, consider the following statements. CAG shall not be eligible for further office either under the central government or any state government. Yes, I mean this is a condition which is stipulated only for two authorities, the CAG plus UPSC chairman. That is just to maintain absolute independence. Yeah, that they should not go and seek any government job either from the center or the state post retirement, so that they can act independently when they are discharging their functions as the CAG and the chairman of UPSC. So they cannot have any employment under the central government or any state government. The salary and other conditions of the service of the CAG are determined by the President. The administrative expenses of the office of the CAG shall be charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India. Yes, we know expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. CAG salary is also there. So which of the statements above correct code based on given above? So 1, 2 and 3? No. Salary and other conditions of the service of CAG are determined not by the President but by the Parliament. So the correct answer is B, 1 and 3 only. Consider the following statements. Attorney General of India is appointed and removed by the President. Yes, he is just the legal advisor to the Government of India, so he will be obviously appointed and removed by the President. Advocate General of a state is appointed by the Governor and removed by the President. Which of the above statements is not correct? First statement is correct, second statement is not correct, because he is appointed and removed by the Governor. Just like the Attorney General is appointed and removed by the President, the Advocate General is appointed and removed by the Governor of the state. So, the correct answer for this, which is asking for incorrect statements, is B, 2 only, right. So, which of the following are the functions of National Commission for Scheduled Caste in India? The NCSC advises the government on the planning process of socio-economic development of scheduled caste. Yes, it does under Article 338A. The NSSC evaluates the progress of development of scheduled caste under the central government or any other state government. Yes, it does. The NCSC decides the inclusion exclusion of caste from the list of scheduled caste. Let's park that statement. The NCSC investigates and monitors all the matters relating to the safeguards provided for the scheduled caste. You know the first statement is definitely right, so you cannot eliminate anything based on that. You know the fourth statement is also definitely right, you cannot eliminate anything based on that. You know that the second statement is also right. The NCSC evaluates the progress of development of scheduled caste under the central government or any other state government. So, now based on the second statement, you have eliminated two statements. So, you have to choose between C and D. But who decides on inclusion and exclusion of the caste from the list of scheduled caste? It is the Parliament. It is not the NCSC, but it is a parliamentary law which can include or exclude scheduled caste, which can include or exclude scheduled tribe. And now with the 102nd constitutional amendment, which has given a constitutional status to the National Commission for Backward Classes, it is the Parliament which will now, it has not happened immediately, but it will happen very soon, where the Parliament will decide on the list to be the respective OBCs for the respective states, and then after that, once that list is finalized through a presidential order, after that any addition or deletion can happen only by the Parliament, right. So, the correct answer for this is C, 1, 2 and 4 only. With reference to the provision of State Public Service Commission India, consider the following statements. The state legislature shall provide for the exercise of additional functions by the State Public Service Commission. Yes. The expenses of the State Public Service Commission are charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. Obviously, the second statement is not correct. It is asking for incorrect statements. So, answer is B. Yeah. So, because it is charged on the Consolidated Fund of those respective states. Which of the following functions are undertaken by the Union Public Service Commission? Again, guys, there is this contentious issue of lateral entry which started few months back. I am not too sure about the status, whether whether people have been shortlisted and interview has happened or not, but there were public advertisements and all given, and there were two sets of opinion, right. And as a former IAS officer myself, Mr. Israel Jabbar Singh, we have also expressed our opinion that this should not happen because it is indirectly bringing back the spoiled system, whereas right from Lord Macaulay's committee way back in 1858, it has been a competitive merit based system. That is a separate political argument or logical argument, but because that has been in the news, functions of UPSC can be asked in this year prelims. See, that is how you need to link your current affairs with the static portion. Something of the static portion which is in the news may not be directly asked as a current affairs question, but will be asked from the static portion related to that. So, please be thorough in that, especially in polity, economy, environment, geography to some extent, all these areas. Please be thorough in your static portion, because there were so much of natural calamities, Kerala floods, the Gaja cyclone in Chennai, Orissa, there was pollution in Delhi, so many natural calamities or anything related to that, then the static portion related to that. So, that is how you need to link and study, so that you have a good chance of clearing the prelims. So, conduct of examinations for the appointment of the services under the union and the states. Oh no, states is done by the State Public Service Commission. So, the first statement is wrong, time saver question. Correct answer is C. Right? But anyways, let's reiterate ourselves. Direct recruitment by selection through interviews. Yes, it's not necessarily examination. There are some posts which are directly appointed through interviews, but that is also done by the UPSC and not by the Government of India. Appointment of officers on promotion, deputation, absorption, that is also done by the UPSC. So, answer is C, 2 and 3. With reference to Niti Aayog, consider the following statements. Niti Aayog monitors, coordinates and ensures the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in India. Yes, it does. The National Institute of Labour Economics Research and Development is a subordinate office of the Niti Aayog. That is also a subordinate office of the Niti Aayog. So, these are straightforward questions, or rather fact-based questions. There is nothing much to discuss here. You should be aware of the facts. It has already been covered in your class. Please do revise it. So, the correct answer is both 1 and 2. With reference to the Central Information Commission of India, again, because we have had so much of news and controversy relating to the Right to Information Act, question may come from the Right to Information Act. Consider the following statements. The jurisdiction of the Commission extends over all central and state level public authorities. The Commission has the suo motu power to order inquiry into any matter. The decision of the Commission is final and binding and cannot be inquired by a court of law. Which of the above statement is not correct? Central Information Commission is for central authorities. State Information Commission is for state authorities. First statement is not correct, which means for this question it's a correct statement, or rather the correct answer. Commission has suo motu power to order inquiry into any matter. Yes, it does have. So, it is a correct statement. So, for the purpose of this answer, you don't need to pick it. The decision of the Commission is final and binding and cannot be inquired by a court of law. Judicial review under Article 136 is a basic structure of the Constitution. Nothing can take away the power of the courts to review a decision of any body in this country, right? Be it executive, statutory, legislature, anything, right? So, this third statement is wrong, but it is a correct code for this question. So, the correct answer is B, 1 and 3 only. With reference to the Election Commission of India, consider the following statements. The Election Commission of India recognizes political parties both at the national and the state level. Yes, it does. The Election Commission settles disputes between the similar groups of recognized parties. Yes, it does. So, the correct answer for this is both 1 and 2. This again, it was 1 year old news, but there was a lot of conflict in the Samajwadi Party. There was a lot of conflict in the All India Anna Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, which is a Tamil Nadu based party. Symbols were frozen and then they were granted to one of the factions. There was recently a controversy over allotment of symbol between the Sharad Yadav faction of the Janata Dal United and the now officially recognized Janata Dal United party of which is headed by Mr. Nitish Kumar. So, those are political slugfest, right? You can enjoy that political developments, and once you get selected, you are going to deal with politicians. So, you better be prepared as to what you are getting into. But that is after you get through, right? So, now we are trying to get through to that post. And so, while those things can happen, think when you are reading or when you are watching that news as to what is the static portion that may be asked, because this has come in the news. And this could be a static portion which can be asked. So, the correct answer for this is both 1 and 2. With reference to the Attorney General of India, consider the following statements. Attorney General of India has the right of audience in all courts in the territory of India. Yes, Article 76 says Ministers and Attorney General of India will have the power to speak in either of the houses. And Attorney General of India enjoys all the privileges and immunities available to a member of Parliament. Yes, anybody who can speak in the Parliament enjoys all the immunities and privileges which the member of Parliament enjoys for whatever he does inside the house. So, both the statements are correct. So, again the correct answer for this is both 1 and 2. Now, from here on till the 93rd question, it is all current affairs, your international organization related question and map related question. So, we are already more than 1.5 hours into the discussion. So, this current affairs part, I will just quickly go through it. I will give you the important discussion points which you should keep in mind, which you should remember, so that if a similar question comes or if the same question comes, you remember this discussion and you are able to appropriately answer it. But the detailed explanation has a thorough explanation about all these points, so please go through it without fail. But I will not skip the questions. Let's go through it in a fast manner over the next 15-20 minutes, and then there are finally some 6-7 questions from polity which are coming towards the end. We will discuss that in detail and complete this discussion. Global wage report. Wage is related to labor. Very, very straightforward question. The correct answer is B, International Labour Organization. Consider the following statements regarding Paisa portal recently launched by the government. It is for processing interest subvention on bank loans to beneficiaries. Yes, that is the purpose. In fact, the Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, the National Urban Livelihood Mission, DAY-NULM. So there are a lot of interest subvention schemes which are provided in that. So it is to process those interest subvention schemes of the bank loans that this Paisa portal has been launched. It is specially designed for cooperative banks. No, again a small trick, but I am putting it with a caveat. Any sweeping statement, specially designed, only designed, if UPSC comes, think twice before you have to mark it as a correct statement, because invariably they are wrong. But again, it's with a caveat. It's not necessarily always true. Sometimes it may turn out to be right, but at times it may be most of the times it is wrong. So please have that in mind. So the second statement is wrong. So the correct answer is A1 only, right? Kerch Strait is located between, the answer is Sea of Azov and Black Sea, and this is related to the Russia and the Ukraine conflict. There were violations which were made by Russia, and Ukraine had taken strong exception to it. So the Sea of Azov and Black Sea is Kerch Strait is situated between the Sea of Azov and Black Sea, and it is currently in the news because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Consider the following statements regarding RIMES, Regional Integrated Multi-Hazard Early Warning System. It is an intergovernment institution owned and managed by the United Nations. Its council is composed of heads of national meteorological and hydrological services and is presently chaired by India. It is presently chaired by India, that is why it is in current affairs. So the second statement is right, but it is not owned and managed by the United Nations. It is owned and managed by all the member states. So the correct answer is B, 2 only, right? Moving on, Wuhan summit recently in news is in the context of India and Japan, India and China, China and North Korea, Japan and China. The correct answer is India and China. This was the informal talks which happened after the Doklam issue. So the correct answer for this is India and China, 62B. Which of the following tribal groups is restricted to the Nicobar Islands? Sentinelese. There was a missionary who was killed by the Sentinelese. Obviously, they are a particularly vulnerable tribal group. I teach anthropology, so it's very close to my heart. And they are a very, very primitive tribal group, and they are happy in their own space, right? So the policy of the government is not to forcefully assimilate tribals. It should be voluntary. And they, because of their past experiences with invaders, with Britishers and all that, probably they have just decided that we are not going to mingle with these modern civilized, so to speak, right, within quote unquote, right, people from the mainland. So that's a separate debate altogether, but because that was in the news, this question can be asked. So which of the following tribal groups is restricted to the Nicobar Islands only? Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Which of the following is restricted to the Nicobar Islands only? So just because Sentinelese was in news and the North Sentinel Island you would have read about, so don't think that it is the Sentinelese which is the answer. No, it is actually the Shompen which is restricted only to the Nicobar Islands. The other three are in the Andaman Islands, right? So correct answer is 63A, Shompen. Saura School of Painting, sometimes seen in the news, is related to which state? Again, a current affairs, straightforward current affairs related question. It is actually related to the state of Odisha, right? So that is the correct answer. The explanation gives details about what school of painting it is and what are the salient features. You can go through it once. Consider the following statements regarding the National Elephant Census. The All India enumeration of wild population of elephants is carried out once every 2 years. It is not. It is done once every 5 years. So the first statement is wrong. There has been drastic increase in the number of elephants due to various conservation efforts undertaken by the government. Wish that was true. But actually from 30,000 odd, right, I have the numbers exactly in front of me, 30,711 to 27,312. I mean, you don't have to remember those numbers, but you should be aware that the elephant population, wild elephant population has reduced. It's conducted once every 5 years and it has actually reduced. So the correct answer is neither 1 nor 2, right? So moving on, consider the following statements regarding Fugitive Economic Offenders Act 2018. So much in news. The extradition issue, very famous businessman who fled the country and ordered deportation by a lower court, which has been challenged in the higher court. All that is a lot of politics involved. Keep that aside for the time being. But there is so much discussion about this and what is the act, the recent act which was enacted and which has been made operational is the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act, and Mr. Vijay Mallya has been named as the first fugitive economic offender. He has the dubious distinction of becoming the first Indian citizen to be named as a fugitive economic offender under the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act of 2018. So because of that, there could be questions related to that. It involves economic offences that amounts to 100 crore or more. Yes, it does. National Company Law Tribunal can order the confiscation of fugitive economic offenders' properties, including those which are binami. Of course, the fugitive economic offenders' property can be confiscated, but there will be special court which will be set up, not by the NCLT. Don't get confused. NCLT and DRT are authorities under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, not under the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. This is a proper judicial process which will be done by special courts. So the correct answer for this is A1 only. Moving on, consider the following statements regarding National Green Tribunal. NGT has the power to hear all civil cases relating to environmental issues. Yes, any criminal case it does not hear. NGT is bound by the procedure laid down by the Code of Civil Procedure. No, it does have the powers of the civil court for enumerating witnesses and calling them and asking them to record statements on oath. It does have the power of a civil court. That is why it is called as a quasi-judicial body. But it is not bound by the Code of Civil Procedure. It is bound by principles of natural justice as per the statement given in its website itself. So please go and have a look at it. So the correct answer for this again is A1 only, because this statement is wrong, because it is bound by principles of natural justice and not bound entirely by Code of Civil Procedure. Which of the following statements are the objectives of the National Bamboo Mission? To increase the area under bamboo plantation in non-forest government and private lands? Yes. To promote skill development, capacity building, awareness generation for development of bamboo sector? Yes. To reduce the dependency on import of bamboo? Very logical. See, these statements, even if you don't know anything about the bamboo mission, but again, trust your knowledge first. Don't go just by elimination. To increase the area under bamboo plantation will definitely be one of the purposes, right? So automatically you are eliminating option C. And to reduce dependency on imports, because we are importing bamboo, so we want to reduce, that's why the bamboo mission has been launched. So the correct answer is D, 1, 2 and 3, right? Consider the following statements regarding global relay of observatories watching transients happen. Growth. It is an international collaborative network of astronomers and telescopes to the study of short-lived cosmic transients, and India is also part of this initiative. This is recently in the news, should have been covered in your current affairs class. Both the statements are correct, so the correct answer is both 1 and 2. Lithium-ion batteries can be used in which of the following devices? Cell phones, electric mobility and energy storage devices. So electric mobility, lithium-ion batteries versus the I'm forgetting the name of the other type of battery. Lithium ion is one, and the other type of batteries which is generally used in various batteries and generators and all those stuff. So this has recently been used for electric mobilities and all that, but this can be used in all the three type of devices. So the correct answer is 1, 2 and 3. Train 18 recently seen in the news is related to training of apprentices at 18 years of age. Wow, Train 18, training of apprentices at 18 years of age. So don't immediately jump and mark that as the right answer. That is not the right answer. It is actually indigenously produced first engineless train. You know, it is going to be the next generation of trains over and above the Shatabdi Express. It can run at speeds of 160 to 200 kilometers per hour. It is under, it is being tested. So that is the Train 18 which is recently in the news. Consider the following statements regarding Green Climate Fund. It is a fund within the framework of UNFCCC. It assists developing countries in adaptation and mitigation practices to counter climate change. It supports in keeping up the goal of Paris Agreement on the climate change. Which of the above statements are correct? All the three are correct. That is the purpose of the Green Climate Fund. So, lot in news because of the US pullout, because of further negotiations on that. So, please be aware of it. So, the correct answer for this is 1, 2 and 3. Consider the following statements regarding rotavirus infection. Rotavirus is a non-contagious disease which affects children above 5 years of age. Rotavirus vaccination is part of universal immunization program. Definitely rotavirus vaccination is part of universal immunization program, but it is an extremely contagious disease which affects primarily children between the age of 3 months and 35 months. So the first statement is wrong. The correct answer is B, 2 only, right? So moving on, India has recently given 9-point agenda to G20 which deals with the fugitive economic offenders. So that is the 9-point agenda which has been given by India recently to G20, because most of the fugitive economic offenders will go and settle down in one of these G20 countries as well, or they may have a lot of property in these G20 countries, right? Because extradition becomes difficult from these countries because there are very, very strong laws there, or definitely at least property will be held in these countries. So it is taking into account both these factors, especially for the property aspect, that we have given directives. So please go through it once, but it is related to fugitive economic offenders. So recently a lot in news, so please be aware of it. The Kimberley process recently seen in news is related to conflict of diamonds, right? So we should be aware about the Kimberley process, which is conflict of diamonds. So the correct answer is 75C. Central Groundwater Authority recently notified water conservation fee for extracting groundwater. Which of the following have been exempted from paying the tax? Agriculture sector, obviously, they're already facing so much of problem, so definitely it will not have any fee. So defense establishments, they are for the security of the nation. All individual households, poor Indians, they will be exempted from the fee? No. Packaged drinking water units, obviously not. So the trick in this question is some of them might have chosen the correct answer, which is A. Some of them might have chosen C because they would have thought every individual is also poor. Majority of the Indians are poor, so there will be no fee. No, there has to be some restriction because so much of groundwater depletion happens because of individual households. So without rainwater harvesting, that is I mean. So this is not the right answer. The correct answer is 76A, 1 and 2 only. These are raptors which travel long distances in the world. It breeds in southeastern Siberia and northern China before migrating in large flocks across India and over the Arabian Sea to winter in southern Africa. Which bird is being referred to in the above statement? The correct answer for this is the Amur falcon. So the explanation in the answer key will explain about all other birds also, but the bird referred to in this question is the Amur falcon. Which of the following are the duties of the Indian Coast Guard? Preserve and protect maritime environment, prevent and control marine pollution, protect artificial islands. So some people might have thought, oh, will it preserve and protect the marine environment? National Coast Guard is as good as the Indian Navy? No, it does provide protection to maritime environment. One of the objectives of the National Coast Guard is to, Indian Coast Guard is to protect the marine pollution which happens because of waste and other things which get dumped into the sea, and it also protects artificial islands. So, the correct answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. Consider the following statements about Agni 5 missile. It has a range of over 15,000 km and can carry about 2,500 kg warhead. As I told you, usually, again, don't just go based on my statement. Many a times, anything which has a number in it is usually a wrong statement, because UPSC knows that the candidates cannot remember these statements. But please, it's a caveat, I give it in the beginning itself. UPSC may become unpredictable and deliberately ask it, because many aspirants may have this in their mind. So please don't trust your knowledge 99%. 99% knowledge, 1% elimination. Right? I'm kidding. 90% knowledge, 10% elimination can work. But 90% elimination, 10% knowledge will definitely not work. So please prepare and then use the elimination techniques. Its initial path is powered, only its descent is by gravity is a correct statement. So the correct answer for this is 79, B, 2 only. Which among the below financial institutions provides financial support to the BIBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal Motor Vehicle Agreement? The correct answer is Asian Developmental Bank. So this is a new initiative which covers areas like water resource management, connectivity, power, transport, right, infrastructure amongst these countries, these neighbors, and it is the Asian Development Bank which funds these initiatives, right. The islands are located in the eastern Pacific Ocean off the west coast of South America. The island inspired Charles Darwin's theory of evolution and was his first field of study. Again, very close to my heart because I teach anthropology here. So Charles Darwin theory of evolution, organic evolution is still the undisputed theory of evolution. Which island is being referred to in the above statements? It's the very famous Galapagos Island, the finch beaks, through which he started his study, and he realized, you know, why is it that there are different sizes of finches, why is it that the beaks are of different sizes, so on and so forth, and that led to the theory of evolution, survival of fittest, so on and so forth. I could keep going on about it for hours together, but this is the polity discussion, so we'll restrict to that. And current affairs is the Galapagos Island, which is related to Charles Darwin. Bering Strait connects which of the following oceans? The correct answer is Arctic and Pacific Ocean. So you can get confused between Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. No, it is the Arctic and the Pacific Ocean which is being connected by the Bering Strait. So the correct answer is D, Arctic and Pacific Ocean. Consider the following statements. Paraguay and Bolivia are the only two landlocked countries in South America. Yes, they are. You can just go and look at the map. Chile has the longest coastline in South American continent. No, it doesn't. Brazil has the longest coastline. So the correct answer is A, 1 only. What is the correct sequence of occurrence of the following Great Lakes as one proceeds from west to east? Guys, this is just a pure map question, so you should just be aware of it. At least, you know, if you know that how to eliminate based on your choice. So you know that Lake Ontario is the easternmost, then you at least know that you can eliminate these two. Guys, I don't know, I am just having the key in front of me and based on that I am saying it. So Lake Ontario is the easternmost. So your choice is between A and D, and the correct answer is A. So that is the correct order when you move from west to east. Equator passes through which of the following South American countries? Brazil, Peru and Colombia. The correct answer for this is Brazil and Colombia. So the correct answer is C, 1 and 3 only. I am just don't think that I am rushing through this because there is nothing to explain here. These are map based questions. You should look at the map and primarily the map of Indian and, you know, the Middle East, and these are the areas which are often asked, but you never know, right? These are all in news for various reasons, various areas it should be thorough with. So that is why this has been asked. So please do have a look at the maps once. With reference to China's Belt and Road Initiative, consider the following statements. In the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit 2018 in Qingdao, India was the only dissenter on the Belt Road Initiative. Obviously, we are objecting to the Belt and Road Initiative, right? So the first statement is correct. The connectivity is only to Asian and European continents, completely reviving its ancient Silk Route. No, it is open to all. Whoever wants to participate can participate. So the first statement only is right. So the correct answer is A1 only. Which of the following is or not the objectives of NAFTA? To eliminate barriers to trade, obviously it's an objective. To increase investment opportunities, obviously it's an objective. To provide protection of intellectual rights, obviously it's an objective. To provide collective security against the Soviet Union, this was not the objective for which the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA as it is called, was set up. So which is not the objective? The correct answer is D. Which of the following is are members of APEC, which is the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation? US, Russia, China, Japan, India, and you have an option 3, 4, 5, all of them Asian countries. So all of them, Japan and all is in the Pacific Ocean only, but that's not the answer. China and India are not part of this. So the correct answer is C, which is 1, 2 and 4. Moving on, consider the following statements regarding Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. RCEP is seen as an alternative to Trans-Pacific Partnership. It is a proposed free trade agreement between the SAARC nations and the ASEAN countries. So again, here it's an alternative to Trans-Pacific Partnership, that's the correct statement, but it is a proposed free trade agreement between ASEAN and the ASEAN plus 6 countries, which includes India, China and all that stuff, right? So the second statement is not correct, so the answer is A1 only. Consider the following statements regarding International Energy Agency. The International Energy Agency is an autonomous intergovernmental organization established in the framework of OECD. Yes, it is correct. To become a member of IEA, a country must have crude oil or product reserve equivalent to 90 days of the previous year's net imports. Yes, that is also correct. But all the members of OECD, which is the oil exporting countries, must be the members of IEA. No, not required. So that's not a condition. So the correct answer is A, 1 and 2 only. The United States Mexico-Canada agreement recently in the news is seen in the context affairs of, it is related to the North American Free Trade Agreement. The proposal is to replace the North American Free Trade Agreement with United States Mexico-Canada agreement. It has been agreed, but it has to be ratified by the respective parliaments of the countries. So the answer for this is 91C. The term BOGO goals is seen in the news is related to actually the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. It was agreed in Bogor in Indonesia. So the correct answer is Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. Guys, these are all fact-based questions. And wherever there is A, B, C, D as a choice, unless you know the fact, you cannot eliminate. At least in combination questions, 1 and 2 only, 1, 2 and 3 only, or 2 and 3 only. Once you know one statement, you can try and eliminate. If you know 2 statements, you may arrive at the correct answer itself. But here, you just know or you don't know, right? So be clear about it. So don't take a very silly chance in such questions unless you are reasonably sure. You know, don't touch these questions if you have already comfortably placed at around 85 to 87 questions, right? So the correct answer is B for this. Which of the following constitutional authorities' expenses are not charged? So now we are again back to constitution. So this we'll again discuss over the next 15 minutes and close the discussion. We have discussed this so many times. One of the demands of the Election Commission of India is to make it at par with all other constitutional authorities when it comes to their expenditure being charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. So the correct answer for this is Election Commission of India, not charged on the Consolidated Fund of India as of now. I don't know why it takes, you know, a constitutional amendment creating reservation for economically backward classes amongst the general category. I mean, there are 2 views to it, but I'm saying that can be passed in 2 days in the parliament. But Election Commission's demand for so many years that my expenditure be charged on the Consolidated Fund of India is still pending. So those are the funny ways in which the Indian democracy works, but we'll have to be proud about it because there are checks and balances, and we are all aspiring. We are all aspiring to be civil servants, so we will stick to the constitution and the UPSC prelims here. Which of the following commission are a constitutional body? National Commission for Women, National Commission for Backward Classes, Finance Commission. Finance Commission, all of us know, it is there right from 1950. So 3 is definitely there, but it doesn't help because 3 choices have 3. National Commission for Backward Classes. Oh yeah, recently in the news, 102nd Amendment, 123rd Bill, recently approved by both the houses, got the assent of the President. So 2 is also correct. So whether the choice is 2 and 3 only or 1, 2 and 3. National Commission for Women? No. It is a statutory body which has been set up by an Act of Parliament. It is not a constitutional body. The correct answer is B, 2 and 3 only. Consider the following statements with respect to Competition Commission of India. It is a statutory body. Yes, there is a Competition Act which establishes the Competition Commission of India. So the first statement is correct. Responsible for preventing activities that have an adverse effect on competition. It gives opinion on competition issues on reference received by it. Obviously, that is why it has been set up. So the correct answer for this is C, both 1 and 2. Consider the following statements with respect to Model Code of Conduct and which of them are correct. It has been issued by Election Commission based on consensus amongst all political parties. Yes. The provisions of the code come into effect from the date of announcement of the poll schedule, not the commencement of nomination papers. From the date of announcement of the poll schedule. And guys, there was a lot of controversy around announcement of dates for Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh in 2 different dates it was announced, right. It happened 1.5 years back, but it's still very much part of, there are going to be poll schedules which are going to be announced again now. By the time you take the prelims, the general elections will be over and there will be a government in place. The same government comes back or a new government that is left to the electorate of this country, but there will be so much of current affairs related to it. So you should be clearly aware the Model Code of Conduct comes into play from the date of announcement of poll schedule. And even during the Rajasthan elections recently, there was a controversy relating to this, that the press conference of the EC was shifted to the afternoon, so on and so forth. So I will not get into the politics of it, but because it is all in the news, this could be a question. And is an operation till the date of declaration of results? Yes. The provisions of the code are legally enforceable? No. It has to be, if you violate a law, it will be taken to task, but Model Code of Conduct is only a moral code of conduct as of now, technically. Of course, as I told you, don't distribute bribe is part of Model Code of Conduct. You should not give bribe for votes is also an electoral offence under the Representation of People Act. So definitely you will be punished for that, not for violation of the Model Code of Conduct, right. So it is not legally enforceable. So the correct answer is A, 1 and 2 only. Regarding the applicability of the fundamental rights, which of the following statements are true? Equality before law is applicable to both citizens and foreigners. Yes, all persons will be provided equality of law or equal protection of the laws. First statement is correct. Prohibition against discrimination is available to both citizens and foreigners. No. Prohibition against discrimination. Article 15, no discrimination. Article 16, no discrimination in public employment. But both those articles deal only with citizens. So this is prohibition against discrimination. And so it is applicable only to citizens, so the second statement is wrong. Protection in respect of conviction for offences is available to citizens only. No, Article 20, which gives protection in respect of conviction, is applicable to all persons. Again, which are the articles which are applicable to citizens and to persons? Please go and watch the previous video. 15, 16, 19, 29, 30, applicable only to citizens. The rest applicable to all persons. So the correct answer here is 97A, 1 only. Moving on, consider the following statements with respect to exceptions to right to equality. Criminal proceedings can be instituted against the President 2 months after giving a notice. No civil proceedings can be instituted against the President during the term of office for any act committed. It is just transposed. No criminal proceedings can be instituted, and if you have to institute civil proceedings, you have to give 2 months notice. So neither of the statement is correct. So the correct answer is neither 1 nor 2, which is D. Regarding the relation between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy, now this is a very interesting question. Let's see how many of you got it right. Any law which is in contravention of fundamental rights is ultra vires of the Constitution. even if it implements any of the directive principles. Remember Article 31C? It says if the law is to give effect to Article 39B, which talks about equitable distribution of resources, or 39C, which talks about wealth being not concentrated in few individuals. If it is to give effect to Article 39B or 39C, that law cannot be called into question on the grounds that it violates the fundamental rights which is guaranteed under Article 14 or Article 19. And that was upheld in the Keshwananda Bharati judgment. So, a law to give effect to Article 39B, which is equitable distribution of resources, or Article 39C, which requires the state to ensure that there is no concentration, the operation of the economic system does not result in concentration of wealth in the hands of few people. In order to give effect to that, if the state is going to take any action to distribute wealth, to redistribute wealth and so on, it cannot be challenged on the ground that it violates right to equality under Article 14 or the right to property under or right to profession under Article 19(1)(g) even today, right? So, the first statement is not correct. So, we know that this is wrong. A law can contravene any fundamental right if it prevents concentration of wealth and ensures distribution of community resources. No, it can contravene only Article 14 or Article 19. It cannot contravene Article 21, which is right to life. It cannot contravene Article 22, which is protection in case of detention. It cannot contravene Article 25, which is your right to religion. It can contravene only Article 14 or Article 19. So, the second statement is also wrong. So, the correct answer for this, which of the above statements is correct, is neither 1 nor 2. So, now we come to the final question. Consider the following statement with respect to right to religion. The right to free propagation of religion under Article 25 does not include the right to convert through use of force. That is a correct statement. No religious instruction shall be imparted in an educational institution receiving aid from the state. That is a wrong statement. Educational institutions which are fully run by the state, no religious instruction. For educational institutions which are aided out of state funds or other educational institutions which are just recognized by the state, there can be religious instruction, but nobody can be compelled to attend it unless they have given their consent. So, the second statement is a incorrect statement. So, the correct answer is B, 2 only. Friends, so I hope you found that discussion useful. As I told you, the current affairs questions, most of the fact based map related questions, I would have just given you the correct answer. The explanation key has all the explanation related to it. But even for the polity related question, while we did revise the provisions of the constitution or the conceptual points, please go through the explanation which is given in detail, because as I told you, as I keep repeating, your test is complete only when you go through the answer key in detail, because UPSC may not ask the same question which we asked in this mock test, but it can be from the explanation that we have given. So, please do that, take your test seriously, write it for 2 hours, wish you all the best. I will see you again in the next polity discussion. Thank you.